You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Again, thanks to everybody for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. The Oklahoma Sooners have a big recruiting weekend right now happening in Norman. They've had camp days. They've also got a guy, 4-star quarterback prospect, Bowe Bentley, who was also invited to the Elite 11 finals. He's going to be in Norman this weekend. He spent the weekend before in Baton Rouge with the LSU Tigers. Those are his two top teams. Originally, those dates were supposed to be flipped. He was going to visit Oklahoma last weekend and come to LSU this weekend. He changed things up. Oklahoma's going to get potentially the last visit for Bowe Bentley in his recruitment. You listen to some of the recruiting analysts out there, they believe that he's going to want to have his decision done fairly, I don't want to say quickly, but maybe more efficiently. This isn't going to be a recruitment that's drawn out into the football season, might not even be drawn out into July, because he wants to be a part of peer recruiting his class. That's the word on the street. And so it wouldn't surprise me if we get some kind of decision in the weeks leading up to Champ U barbecue, if it is Oklahoma that he does choose. But Oklahoma's going to be rolling out the red carpet for Bowe Bentley this weekend. There's some word out there that he's been golfing with some former Heisman Trophy winners, which is pretty cool. I mean, what Oklahoma is able to do as a school when they're recruiting quarterbacks and the star power that they can roll out, that's pretty impressive. And Oklahoma is, I mean, listen, Champ U barbecue might be as big a weekend as there is in Oklahoma recruiting, but they're going to be putting a lot of their focus and a lot of their attention on Bowe Bentley this weekend. And it's a guy that Ben Arbuckle loves. It's a dude that, Bowe Bentley himself seems to like Oklahoma a lot. Obviously, top two. Now it's just a matter of, can they do enough to make sure LSU isn't really a part of the equation? Oklahoma's quarterback recruitment is still very much up in the air. They have Jaden O'Neal committed, but he's taken visits elsewhere like Arizona, Florida State, Auburn are all kind of in the mix to see what happens with Jaden O'Neal. There's still a good chance that he could end up in Oklahoma's class. I still kind of find that a little bit hard to believe that they would have both quarterbacks. I know that's kind of the word on the street is they'd like to have both guys in the room in 2026, but it just seems unlikely to me. I would say less than a 50% chance that they have both of those guys. I think they'll have one of those guys. I feel really, really good about them having at least one. It's just a matter of which one. And why it's so huge, man, is like this sets the tone for everything else. If they can get that commitment from Bowe Bentley, it clarifies everything. Whether Jaden O'Neal stays in the class or not, it clarifies the rest of the class, the rest of the cycle at quarterback, and it really starts to help the recruiting class snowball a little bit more, where wide receiver is at, where tight end is at, where running back, offensive line, where all these things go can oftentimes depend on who's the quarterback and what kind of gravity do they have to pull other guys in with the class. We know guys like, Brian Harris, Nico Jandrow, they're going to be doing some peer recruiting as well. Brian Harris is someone that's trying really, really hard to get a guy like Jake Krell on board, the 5-star, defensive end from IMG Academy. But so much of recruiting a lot of times is relationships. And we talked about it on yesterday's show. Brent Venables is one of the best 12 recruiters in college football. And a lot of it comes down to the fact that he's able to build really good relationships, both with players and with families. He's somebody that families trust and feel comfortable with. They believe that not only is he going to develop my son as a football player, but he's going to develop him as a man. And you look at a guy like Bowe Bentley and you just don't see a whole lot of flash to him. He just seems to be about the business. He's not on social media a bunch. He's just taking care of business. And it's kind of a refreshing recruitment. Someone who is just going to be out there doing his visits, getting recruited. He'll make a decision, and then we might not hear from him again after his commitment date. Who knows, man? There's no telling, but he just doesn't seem to be as vocal on the social media as some other, quarterback commits in recent years. But again, it's a big time weekend for Oklahoma. They're going to have a lot of big time prospects on campus as well, in addition to Bowe Bentley. But this weekend, no disrespect to any of those other guys, but this weekend is all about Bowe Bentley. And if they can land that commitment, they can land another, top 10 quarterback prospect in the class. It's going to set the stage for Oklahoma's quarterbacking future. And it's going to, again, provide a lot of clarity as to the direction of the program at quarterback. Because we know that Ben Arbuckle has a great affinity for Bowe Bentley. If he lands him, I think there's a lot of clarity there. If they don't, and he goes to LSU, again, it provides a lot of clarity as to Oklahoma's quarterback direction. Jaden O'Neal could very well still be a very significant part of Oklahoma's future. I think just a lot of it's going to depend on what Bowe Bentley decides to do. And if Oklahoma stays true to the idea that they want to take two, and if Jaden O'Neal wants to be a part of a 2 quarterback class. We've seen schools do that in the past. Alabama is kind of the most recent one where they took 2 top 10 quarterbacks. One of them didn't stick with Alabama. I don't actually think either of them stuck with Alabama, if I'm remembering that right. So fascinating to see where that goes. On the softball front, we had 2 more players enter the transfer portal on Thursday. Katie Lee McKay, infielder, and Hannah Core, which was actually a little bit surprising. I felt like Hannah Core was going to be in line for some more innings this next year, probably or potentially being able to play center field for the Sooners. But when you got a Kai Minor that's coming in, the number 1 overall prospect in the 2025 recruiting class, signed with the Sooners, it's going to be on campus starting in the fall. That might change the projection or the potential for a player like Hannah Core to have a lot of extra innings. They also love Tia Malloy. Chris Plank, voice of the Oklahoma Sooners, host on KREF, mentioned Tia Malloy as somebody who's a breakout candidate for 2026. And if that's the case, and you're looking at an outfield of Abigail Dayton, Tia Malloy, and Cassidy Pickering, that's a really, really strong outfield with a Kai Minor that's also going to rotate in there as that 4th outfielder potentially. And you might be able to understand why Hannah Core would look for greener pastures elsewhere. So far, Oklahoma's lost 4 players to the transfer portal, and there's potential that they'll lose more. Patty Gasso went on with Chris Plank on KREF in Norman and said that they will have some movement in the transfer portal. And she even went on to say that it's going to be movement that we'll like. So I imagine that they've already got some people in mind, might even already have some silent commitments in mind at this point. But I would imagine that one of those is going to be a pitcher. It wouldn't surprise me if they go after a catcher to pair with Kendall Wells, who's the top catcher in the 2025 recruiting class, somebody that would pull a tune with her, and Riley Zach as well. So we'll see. But I mean, Oklahoma's going to be back in the mix for the Women's College World Series, and they're going to be a title contender next year because they're such a young team. Remember, they only lost Sydney Sanders out of their everyday lineup. Yeah, Hannah Core was part of that. She platooned in there, mixed in with Sydney Barker in the outfield at times, but you're bringing back your 1 through 4 hitters in the lineup in Cassidy Pickering, Ella Parker, Gabby Garcia, Nelly Macaroni-Marinas. You're bringing back your number 9 hitter in Abigail Dayton. You're bringing back Ilana Agbayani, a Gold Glove second baseman who had some clutch hits for you at times this year. You're bringing back, again, Sydney Barker. She had 3 hits against Nija Kennedy, 3 for 3 night against Kennedy in an elimination game. I think she's going to have a big, big career for Oklahoma before it's all said and done. And she's probably going to be your everyday first baseman, I'd imagine. That's my guess on what Patty Gasso will do with her. And then, a lot of it comes down to pitching and catching. What are you going to do at catcher? Are you going to run it back with Isabella Emmerling? Are you going to use her as kind of the veteran to platoon with Riley Zach and with Kendall Wells? Or are you going to go into the portal and see if you can find an upgrade, at least at the plate? Emmerling was pretty solid behind the plate defensively, could have been better at times, but what you need is a little bit more consistency at the plate from her. But you're bringing in the number 1 transfer or number one pitcher in the 2025 recruiting class as well, and Alyssa Parker. So that gives you somebody that, you can build your staff around if you feel really good about her as a true freshman. And you're looking at Sophia Bourdie coming back too. When she comes back to campus, I don't know, but I think the expectation is she'll be back at some point. So your pitching is looking pretty strong. And you have Audrey Lowry, who was really, really good down the stretch. Even though she didn't get to pitch in the Women's College World Series, she was really good in the super regionals, in the regional round, in the SEC tournament. So you've got a really strong foundation to build around, but you probably need a frontline veteran arm to be your Sam Landry, your Kelly Maxwell, to lead that staff when it is so young. You've got Kirsten Deal, who's going to be still a significant part of the staff, and Peyton Monticelli, who will come in and throw some relief innings for you. But you got to find somebody that's capable of throwing that 150, 160, 170 innings and being your go-to starter in the tournament, in the Women's College World Series. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Jay, my buddy at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, on YouTube. You can follow me at John9Williams, and you can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. But until next time, for my buddy Jay, I'm John Williams. Boomer Sooner.